It's all good now. You got our guy. We responded back. We satisfied our radicals over here, these extremists that wanted the Death to America crowd. It's all over, guys. Wink and a nod. But what if it's not? I'm hearing a lot of commentary that, which is fine, and it's not inaccurate, that this missile attack, for those of you who missed it last night, maybe you're sleeping, working, whatever may have happened, excuse me, the Iranians decided, bizarrely, it would be a good idea to launch from Iranian territory, the first time we've seen this since the Gulf War, from Iranian territory, ballistic missiles into Iraq, targeting U.S. bases or bases where U.S. personnel were stationed. Now, to be clear, there are no reported casualties as of this time. Thankfully, President Trump is going to speak about it later. There are no casualties reported at this time, U.S. casualties, that is. That's the good news. The bad news is the Iranians thought this was a good idea. Now, some of the commentary I heard last night was, well, this was a face-saving measure. Basically, the gist of it, Joe, being that the Iranian hardliners, the mullahs, that they had to do something to save face with the radical, basically terrorists in Iran that are pushing the mullahs to do something. So they did this, well. Yeah. And by face-saving, they mean this may have been an intentional miss. In other words, the ballistic missiles may have targeted specific areas where they didn't think they would rack up any U.S. casualties, knowing, Joe, if they happened to kill any U.S. servicemen, that President Trump was not going to take that lying down, and the response would be immediate and likely pretty deadly for the mullahs. Everybody tracking? So face-saving measure in that they had to do something, and what they did, they intentionally targeted areas where they didn't think they would kill any U.S. soldiers because they knew if they did, it would result in probably devastation for them in their oil facilities and elsewhere. I want to challenge that for a moment. Folks, I don't think this was a face-saving maneuver, and I'm listen when I tell you this, please. I am hoping and praying I'm wrong on this, but I don't believe it was face-saving, Joe. I believe this was a head fake.
All right.
Now, as the audience ombudsman, always, Joe, follow me. And if it doesn't make sense, please let me know. But here's what I mean by that.
You got it.
Maybe it's meant to look like a face-saving maneuver, right? Like, look, here's what we did. We launched some missiles. We didn't kill any of your people. It's all good now. You got our guy. We responded back. We satisfied our radicals over here, these extremists that wanted the Death to America crowd. It's all over, guys. Wink and a nod. But what if it's not? What evidence do we have based on past history of Iranian extremist behavior? Extremists now run this country. Terrorists, radicals, savages, people who act like cavemen are running this country. Not the Iranian people. Iranian people tried to overthrow these people under the Obama administration that promptly abandoned them. But the Iranians running this country now are savages. What evidence do we have that they've de-savaged themselves, de-caveman themselves? And now, Joe, according to the tweet by the Iranian spokesperson Zarif, don't worry, it's all over.
Yeah. Right.
Joe, you believe
they're
any
like
of that?
Roaches. No. I was saying they're like roaches. They just keep coming back, no matter what.
Every single time. They are not done, folks. The problem I have with this, I don't know, talking point. I don't want to call it a talking point because this line that it's face-saving implies, Joe, that it was done to save face as a measure to get out of this. I don't think the Iranians want to get out of this. They have been engaged in a generational war with the United States. They have absolutely no intentions of stopping. That's the issue I have right now. Folks, listen, nobody is against foreign excursions that are unnecessary more than I am. But we need to live in the world we live in, not live in the world we want to live in. This is not utopia. The Iranians are trying to create a dystopia. What I'm getting at here is the only language, the mullahs, again, not the Iranian people, these terrorist mullahs, the only language they speak is death. That's the only currency of the realm they deal in. And if death is what they want, death is what we'll give them. It's not what we want. It's never what we wanted. We don't want any of this. Let me be crystal clear. I think I speak for the overwhelming majority of the people in the United States. I haven't told them all. I don't need to. I've seen the polls. Nobody wants. If you poll people, do you want a war with Iran? The numbers are overwhelmingly, of course not.
Right, yeah.
We want this to stop now. But when your only currency is death, and that's the only language you understand, speaking to you in a language outside of death and destruction is a fruitless endeavor because it's a one-way conversation. They only understand death. They're no different than a caveman-like schoolyard bully who's 10 years old and bigger than the other kids. They only stop when the bully gets punched in the face. That's my concern. I'm not suggesting a dramatic escalation. I'm simply suggesting the fact that this is not to suggest it's face-saving by the Iranians and that they're now going to back away like a reasonable person would do is crediting them with the intellectual capacity to reason that they don't have. They are not done. This is not the end. I cannot emphasize that enough. You know, one of the great honors of my life, having been a Secret Service agent, where you travel around the world, is, although we're not an intelligence operation, it's a protection law enforcement operation, you travel around the world. I was in 30 countries before my 35th birthday. In each country and each protectee that comes into town, you get pretty detailed country briefs. Again, I'm not claiming where, those country briefs make you, the tip of the spear expert on every single country in the world. But you get to read a lot of intel on a lot of different places, and you see common threads often.
Sure.
The common thread in this is when you deal with tyrannical regimes and you get the country brief, they all only respond with the currency of the realm being death. And that's their choice, not ours. Nobody wants this. This is not some kind of a Rambo movie. This is real. It involves real soldiers and real lives, people close to the people on this station who understand exactly what this means. But suggesting again that this is face-saving and the Iranians are now going to back down because they just wanted to save face does not comport with reality.
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud and follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 @DBongino.